If you want to be successful this year, then you're going to have to get serious about your success. Many people are learning about what is happening in the family courts, but then they don't really know what to do with what they are learning. So if you've been going through a divorce or hearing about people going through one, then you know that there are a lot of people out there suffering. You may not really know what it's all about, or maybe you do, and you're here because what you have been doing wasn't working, or you want to get better at using your rights arguments. You're all in the right place. Let's take a look at what is happening when you or someone you know hits rock bottom in their relationship and the family courts get involved in their life. We're going to go over some slides that I made to help you visualize what's going on in the process. So let's start at the beginning on slide 1. As a young adult, your life starts off as a blank slate, but your life is divided between 4 quadrants. Do you know what those are? Let's take a look. No matter what age you are, you have your family life, your work life, personal life, and your charitable work. And as you get older, your family life might also include your own children or stepchildren. But the question is, what happens when you hit rock bottom in your relationship and the family courts come prancing into your life? Well, you won't have any family life balance anymore, and your personal life goes away, and your family life gets completely changed and minimized by the courts. What replaces all of this? It's government. You're going to get to know these buildings real well. The court buildings, legislative buildings, attorney general, your district attorneys, and your own attorney's office. You might even spend time in jail. You're going to find out real quick you don't have to be a criminal to go to jail anymore. The family court process churns out family court jail orders like they were going out of style, just like they're candy in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. So they make up shit just so they can punish you. What takes the place of what you knew as life before is a whole lot of getting to know strangers in these buildings. You'll need to know what is the process and what about the process is causing so many people to be upset and to look outside their attorney's offices. You'll need to know how to deal with these horrible practices and how to manage it best you can. All of the freedoms you knew before, you can forget about, throw them out the window. It's going through a breakup and no longer agreeing with the other parent of your child is already stressful, and they're going to take advantage of that, and they're going to make it even more stressful. This is not a game about fairness or truth. This is nasty, ugly, ruthless, and barbaric. And they know that your relationship with your child is the one thing, the most precious, valued relationship that you have, and they're going to test your might on this, and they're going to see how much you're willing to pay for this. So when your relationship with the other parent got rocky and your assurance that the other parent would support your relationship and work with you and seeing your child, and you realized that wasn't going to happen anymore, you might have run to the court thinking that, oh, they're going to buffer this and protect you. This is where we really begin. So welcome to the Family Law Foundation's master class, where we have categorized where and when to use your rights. Let me show you. You need this class because you are going through a child custody battle and you want to know what to expect. This class breaks down the family court process in a child custody suit into an easy to understand overview of the process and shows you where your parental rights play a role to protect you and your child. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. First, I want to go over with you something that causes so many people to not be able to do this. They get stuck, they start doubting themselves and their rights, they get dragged into different directions, and they lose hope and raw ability. So let's take a look at what's happening there and understand things are going to change. But let's look at the deeper changes first, and then we'll go over what caused these changes. So we're looking at what does this do to you psychologically. Your fear from the beginning of losing your child, your home, your wife or husband, your life turns into nothing but stress. And as your stress increases, so does your anxiety increase. And if you didn't have any anxiety before, you will now. But at first you think, okay, I know I can't handle this on my own. So you visit an attorney's office or two. You don't think there's a whole lot to worry about at first either. You think having an attorney is going to keep things honest and protect your rights, and you never, ever dream that the court or the attorney, your own attorney, could become the one attacking you. But once things go on for a bit and you've spent up your retainer, the intensity grows, things aren't resolved, hearings keep getting delayed, emergency hearings keep getting set, or they're filed for and they're based on complaints about where you took the children last visit or how you disciplined them, and the other parent may start saying the child doesn't even want to see you anymore. So you stress over how will you work enough hours to pay your attorney, and then that becomes stress over how are you going to get everything done at work while you're trying to get your child on this new routine schedule that they set, and you're trying to get everything done the attorney says you need to do by certain deadlines. And how will you afford all of the extra bills that they pile onto you during this process? And the list goes on. So the intensity grows, and the longer this goes on, the duration of the stress, the intensity and duration turns into depression, hopelessness, and eventually you develop PTSD. So we created this course to help you clear that brain fog, to push out all the negative ideas that they try to put in your head and convince you to think about yourself and your feelings. All the hoops they'll try to get you to jump through, the hurdles, the changes that they want you to make to your life, and you become basically the dog in the box that they get to shock for fun. I know it sounds unbelievable, right? But if you are already living it, you know this is how it is. So we created this course, and we've broken down the process for you and made it even easier than ever before to learn. No more long drawn out lectures or massive amounts of information in one video sending you into information overload. Nope. We have a new format and a new class where each section, well, let me show you. There are 5 stages in the family court process and 3 areas of your life that are impacted. The 5 numbered circles are the stages. Those are the 5 around the big circle. I'll reveal what those are in a minute. And the 3 sides of the triangle are the 3 categories. We'll go over those too. So let's reveal the 3 categories first. But first, can you guess what they are? Let's see what they are. These are the 3 categories that we will use to refer to the areas in your life affected by the process of going through family law and divorce: psychological, physical, and your foundation. And it doesn't matter if you were never married, this applies to you too. So that would also mean that this applies to those in paternity actions, because once you establish paternity, you'll be involved in a child custody action of some sort to establish orders for child custody, parenting plans, child support, and if you were married, alimony and spousal maintenance could be asked for. It's not in every case. Those are just some of the topics that will be introduced, explained, and taught in the course. Not today though. Today I'm showing you how the course works, the way it's laid out. So whether you're pro se or you have an attorney, you will all want this information. You need it if you want to protect yourself from being further taken advantage of. And even if you're not new to this, this course can still help you no matter where you are at in the process. That means if you're in appeal, modification, challenging temporary orders, there is a section in this course for you. So once you can make sense of things and understand all of this in an organized way, knowing even what has happened to you in the past can help you build on your understanding of what is happening to you now and what the patterns are, so you can better anticipate and perhaps even predict what they will try to do to you next in the future. And if you're helping other parents, you're going to want them to understand this too. They will be easier to help if they understand. So if you're visual and a hands-on person, you are going to love this course. These 3 categories make up your being: who you are. And this is what is under attack. We're going to show you what they use to affect each of these areas. Through awareness, you will be able to predict what you need to do to deflect their attacks and produce the outcomes that you desire. Ultimately, the outcome that this produces is protecting your parent-child bond and your relationship, the most precious and invaluable bond you'll ever have in your life. Amazingly, even if you have an attorney, this vulnerable and precious bond that you have with your child is not protected in the ways you might think. And these are things that your attorney doesn't even lay out for you. There's one really important piece missing from this picture. Can anyone tell me what that is? Look at the triangle. What keeps your foundation strong? Let's look at the next slide and find out. Your boundary. Can you see it? Right down there above the foundation. What makes up your boundary? What goes into your foundation makes your boundary. Your beliefs, your values, your experiences, your education. These all establish your foundation, and these define your boundary. All of this makes up who you are. These are the things that the family courts are going to try and change. They are going to pick on you and bully you and try to make you think you chose badly on this decision or that. And they're going to try to make you believe that if you change, you will get better results. And if you don't have this information, they just might succeed at convincing you and keeping you in a never-ending court loop, sort of like the never-ending story. This class, Foundations, is your journey through the family law process. In this class, you will learn what to expect and be prepared in advance. The biggest problem parents have faced is that they get ambushed, caught off guard, not prepared, and then they don't have enough time or information to catch up, and instead they end up on the defensive the entire time and depending or relying on someone else. And if you let them, you will end up with someone else in control of your life. So let's take a quick look at how that happens. It all starts here. One of you goes to the court and files a petition asking for the court to restrict the other parent and protect them. Then you get served. Do you see the circle with the number 1 at the top? It now says service. This is the first stage of the 5 stages in the family law process of child custody lawsuits. And these suits are in tandem with a divorce or paternity action, or when 2 parents are just breaking up or not getting along, or you might just think you need an order to protect your rights for the times when you might not be getting along so great. Some of you were taught to think ahead and plan ahead while you are getting along, and that's generally good advice. So in most areas of life, this works out pretty well. But this has not been the case for many parents we've talked to who thought this very same thing and ended up regretting putting anything at all into these family courts. They ended up facing a judge who decided they didn't like them and actually gave their child to the other parent, or started minimizing their rights and making them more and more dependent on the other parent, or giving the parent certain sole rights like medical decision making. So these parents ultimately ended up regretting putting anything in the court at all. And some of them went to court because the other parent had taken off for the first several years of the child's life, and then they decided to come back in. And while they supported the parent being part of the child's life, they wanted to make sure the child's routines and everything they had established for that child and activities would be protected. And that other parent might start making demands and being sensitive towards what the parent who had cared for them all those years had put into place. But like I said, they ended up regretting ever putting anything into the courts. And that's really sad because you don't have any other way to get your rights protected. So these parents learned the hard way, and now most of them have become activists or advocates so that they can also help stop these horribly broken system practices. But these practices got this way because parents got complacent and expected their court systems to do what they took an oath to do. So not unreasonably, but so here you are, and you're going to change that. Just learning about your rights and how to use them is one of the most important things you can do to change the system and protect your child right now and in the future. So we're making this even easier for you to learn than it ever was before. In our class, we are numbering these sections so that if you are in this stage, number 1, you're going to look for number 1 lessons in our new release course. These will be lessons about service and everything involved with service, including things you never knew you needed at that stage to know. It's a stage, so we aren't talking about the actual physical legal part of service or the actual paperwork. This is where you're going to learn about where you can use your rights in your responses and counter pleadings, or what to, maybe some of the things to look for regarding rights about service. So then what? After you're served, you're going to go on to the next stage, which is the pre-trial stage. And that's where you're going to shop for an attorney, and you're going to find one, and you're going to pay a hefty retainer because you're not going to know what to look for in the attorney or what to ask them. So you're going to be asked for anywhere from $1,500 to $10,000, even $20,000, all depending on your financial profile and how that looks, right? And how high conflict you say your relationship is between you and the other parent. So you don't know at this point that you shouldn't be going about things this way. You have no idea what is in store for you. Your attorney does, though. They've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times, and this has happened millions of times throughout the United States. Did you know the average divorce costs about $70,000? The average high conflict divorce. But if they told you that, they couldn't slowly bleed you dry, because you'd probably walk out the door. You'd probably run out the door thinking, heck no, there's no way I can afford that. So they have a pretty good idea of how things are going to go. They just don't tell you the plan. So you trust them, you hand over your money, and you sign a contract that pretty much tells you nothing other than now they have the right to force payments on you and force you to renew their retainer. And so basically they've taken over your finances and all of your assets. You just don't know that yet either. But if you're working with us, you will learn about this, and you won't just blindly hand over a retainer. You're not going to just blindly make the mistakes you were making before. You are going to make your own contracts. You're going to direct your case, and your attorney is going to apply the laws that protect your rights that they've been leaving out, that you're going to be learning about in this class, because you're going to insist on it, or else they should not be getting your business. You should not be paying them for a service you don't know about or you don't want. So what happens if you don't know us yet? Let's take a look. After you give them the retainer, you're officially into stage 2, pre-trial. Look for lessons numbered 2. And I want you to think about this. They really don't have a good reason to be running up a bill on you. There's no real proper cause of action, but they will say there is. They will say the fact that you are going through a divorce or paternity action, or the other parent is saying they don't want you to have equal time, and so you have a disagreement. And the fact that you or the other parent filed an action in the court, they're going to say gave the court the jurisdiction. And they're going to say the statutes are sufficient, and they're going to say that these life occurrences, the complaints that you're making, are sufficient to give the court jurisdiction. There's a lot more that happens here, so you would look for the lessons labeled number 2 to see what rights you should be using and how we suggest using them at this stage. You're always going to check with an attorney, though. We're not attorneys and we don't practice law. And I'm Sherry Palmer, if I didn't mention it at the beginning, with Fixed Family Courts. Once your pretrial filings are completed and your responses and counter pleadings are done, you move on to the next stage, if that is part of your strategy. There are things you will find in stage 2 that might be helpful in getting the other side's pleadings dismissed and get you out of court without having to go on. But that's for you to check out when you get into this course. But most of the time, especially if you have an attorney controlling this, you're going to be graduating on to the next stage. And this is not a graduation you ever want to have. The attorney in the court have to literally chisel away at your beliefs and your values and make it as expensive as possible to make you think this is really official and to keep litigation going and to justify it. You are now in stage 3. It is the period between pretrial and trial. All of the lessons here will be labeled stage 3. Stage 3 is also the period between pretrial and trial. So you're going to look for all the lessons labeled 3, but it's also going to include all the stuff building up to trial and include the trial. So in stage 3, you get served with discovery, or you serve on the other person. The court has issued an order from the pretrial stage that gives you deadlines and dates when you have to produce specific parts in order to go to trial. Things like producing a witness list, completing discovery, completing interrogatories and depositions, and getting your subpoenas issued. You'll also be dragged into court during this stage multiple times for temporary orders, modifying temporary orders, being told to go to mediation, enforcing those things, for appointing court experts, finishing discovery, and appointing professionals to do studies, which means now they're going to violate your privacy and use your child to keep you on the hook and for keeping the case going. This is where they are going to suggest asking for a guardian ad litem, or the common acronym is GAL, G-A-L, or an amicus, or for other studies like psych evals and social studies. 730 evals is what they call them in California, child custody studies. And this is where your health starts to take a dive. The intensity and duration of how long this can go on, this stress. The temporary orders may not be temporary. They can last for years. And the financial strain you're under, and the constant escalation of every little decision being threatened to be dragged back into court. Things you thought were perfectly fine and you've always done as a parent become points of interest for taking away your time, your rights, limiting your authority, and making you pay more money. The strain of paying more money alone and paying for 2 households as you valiantly show the court that you aren't shirking your duties, because that's what they make you believe it is, just pull you down more and more, and the list goes on. The psychological impact increases, and it becomes more and more difficult to focus on the things that you need to focus on. You feel like you're getting less and less protection, less and less help, and the simplest of tasks can become so difficult as you grow more weary and hopeless. That once balanced or happy, content person you once were is no longer anywhere around. You might not even recognize yourself anymore. It's just gone, just like that. And now even your physical health might be taking a toll. And you might be needing to take pills and even might become disabled. And after that, after your trial is done, you go through post-trial. And this is where you wait for your final orders to be entered. This can be an entirely new battle, and almost most people aren't aware of that, and your attorneys don't tell you that in advance either. You think the final trial is over, and that's it. You get an order. Now you can see your child because maybe you weren't getting to see them. So while your final order might have placed a lot of limitations on your rights, you're really tired, and you just want that to be the end. You think that there's nothing else left for you to do. So you think getting those final orders in place, or you might not even think about it, is going to be less stressful. You might have even accepted that you're beaten, sort of. But some of you think here, well, I can change it later. And that's how you justify these horrible orders. You say this because your attorney tells you this, and your attorney tells you this because you were running out of money and you could no longer afford to feed that system. You couldn't afford to keep things going anymore, and they knew it. They had run you dry into bankruptcy. So they get you to accept whatever outcome happens at trial. But then you think about it after a while you're waiting for this final order to get put into place. which can take months, by the way. So then you might start getting angry, and you might start thinking about appeal, and you might start thinking, you know, once these get ordered, I'm going to go to appeal. And then you get told that could cost you. You might think, once these final orders get entered, I'm going to go to appeal. But do you know, final orders can even cost you as much as a $20,000 retainer. It can get super expensive. I kid you not. I've seen this happen. All of that information is going to be in the lessons labeled with the number 4, because that's your post-trial stage. So there's going to be things that you need to know about there, like filing post-trial objections and other motions, like asking for new trial, reconsideration, asking for findings of fact and conclusions of law. So all of that you're going to find under lessons labeled number 4. Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking about those final orders and the entire process, how unfair it was, and how terribly you were treated, and the things the judge said, and how they were all wrong, all based on lies or not even based on any real evidence. And so you think you're going to appeal. In the meantime, you might be falling behind in child support, facing more jail threats. Perhaps you've been put in jail, maybe even more than once. And then you're told it's going to cost a lot to appeal. And you're broke, and you are told you won't even have much chance of getting anything really meaningful out of this appeal. Because you think maybe you can challenge best interest. You'll say the judge made a mistake. That's a losing argument from the start. No appellate court is going to overturn a judge's opinion based on the judge's own beliefs. It's not even legal for them to judge beliefs. Wasn't for your judge, and it isn't for the appellate judges either. But they do it. So you're not going to get that overturned. If you don't use your rights arguments, you're not going to get anywhere on appeal. So these rarely get overturned if you don't use your rights arguments, because the orders, the trial, everything was just based on viewpoint discrimination, opinions, beliefs, and personal biases. So if you really want a fighting chance, if you want to change these odds, you'll enroll in our membership today so you get included in the class. Or you can just keep the never-ending story going along and spending money in the process when you don't get the results you need. Going through modification and going through the whole process again. It's like a never-ending story. So if you really want a fighting chance, if you want to change these odds, you'll enroll in our membership today so you get included in the class on February 3rd, 2020 for no extra cost. This class is valued at $1,895, but if you enroll in a membership today, you'll get a free ebook on protecting your parental rights, and you'll qualify to get in on the class early for no extra cost at all. This is a limited membership though, and I'm only extending this offer to you for 24 hours. After that time, so not only if you get the membership today, not only will you be enrolled into the Family Rights Foundation's master class, you will also get your first ebook free. So you can choose your path today by choosing to be proactive. Let's start right now. Choose your path, and we will simulate the path for you and the outcomes before you ever actually do it in reality. Think about all the heartache that's going to save you, and all the wasted money, and the pain and the stress, and the physical and the emotional illnesses those can cause. There is a good reason for starting now. While we can't predict your results, going through this course gets you emotionally and physically ready for the combat, and it makes you stronger. Just visualize this as training exercises like the military goes through. Don't let them ambush you. Know how to use your tools. I'm ready to teach you. Are you ready? I'll see those of you who are in the class.